Good afternoon, Lancers. This is Robin Thompson, and this is my week 2 presentation, and we're going to be moving theory to practice. So for this week, I chose to talk about the current public administration issue of homelessness. And this has been a story that's been in the news for obviously many years, but as of late, it seems to be more and more of a concern in many counties and cities all across California. So I'm going to be talking specifically about Riddle and Weber and their discussion of wicked problems. And I'm also going to be talking about Alice Rivlin and her idea of systematic thinking for social action. So, wicked problems. Citizens and lawmakers can agree on just one aspect of homelessness, and that there is a problem. No one can really agree on the cause, who's to blame, how to solve it, or if there really even is a plausible solution. People's values, circumstances, and money are often standing in the way. So when we talk about wicked problems, they're difficult to define, and they are inherently unsolvable. And some of the characteristics when I thought about homelessness as it relates to a wicked problem is because a wicked problem is one that can be viewed as a symptom of another problem. So for example, homelessness, is it because of the decline or shortage of affordable housing in different cities? Is it social service programs? Maybe they're not enough for people to live off of, or maybe people have become dependent on the aid that they receive. Is it our economy as a whole? Is there a lack of jobs? Is it the funding or acceptance and funding of illegal immigrants? Is it a lack of education or skills by those who are homeless? So as you can see, the list goes on, and depending upon who you ask, nevertheless, it's a problem, and it's on the rise. And this wicked problem of homelessness, citizens, policymakers, various stakeholders must all work together to try and put their differences aside and come up with a solution to help put a plan in place. I also thought about, the centralization or decentralization, which is better. And in this regard, I would have to say that probably decentralizing this, taking away the power from up top and having it more spread out, amongst, local businesses, individuals from the community, nonprofits, government itself. We need all of these ideas and all of this input and feedback from these different avenues in order to collectively work together to work towards a solution. So as far as this wicked problem of homelessness, there's a lot of different factors that make up this problem, and being able to actually define the cause is almost irrelevant at this point, because there is a problem and we need to move forward and look towards ways of finding a solution. And the only way to do that is, of course, by working together. So next, I wanted to talk about Alice Rivlin. And her approach is a little bit different. She more or less has this idea or thinking that we fail to solve social problems because we don't know how to do it. They're generally hard, and they involve a lot of conflict amongst various groups, because nobody's holding the same objective. No one wants the same, no one wants to go about doing it the same way. So it's really about problem solving. How do we solve this problem of homelessness? And she also talked about in her book that politicians pay more attention to interest groups than the public interest. And this can be true. With program design, which is what she heavily focused on, you really have to look at all sides of programs that you're going to implement into a community or a city, and the impact of each possible problem, as far as, not even just monetary or for a budget purpose, but, the domino effect of if we do this, then this. You have to kind of be one step ahead, and you really have to make sure that the design and those making these policies have the right intentions, because a lot of times these programs are design problems within public policy, and it could be to confusion of, let's say, political instability, social incoherence, economic growth or decline, or even just the changing demographics that our city has and the constant changes that we're going through. Social programs are very costly and overfunded sometimes, and payment mechanisms fail toward efficiency. And we obviously talk about efficiency and when we talk about Taylor and Taylorism. But decentralizing the decision makers and leaving the decisions at the state and local levels, so it allows more control and the most opportune for program success. We need to improve policy-making process. In order to do that, we do need to find a common ground. We do need to do what benefits the greater good, but we really have to be able to consider all aspects. And with that is working together, this sense of teamwork and collaboration. We talk about Gulick and his ideas of POSCORB. It shouldn't matter who's doing the job. The policies, the procedures, the rules and regulations should all be clear, so there really isn't any interpretation for error. So his idea of the planning, the organizing, and the coordinating, and how each of these stages really needs to be carefully planned out by managers and those that are in charge before the implementation of a program. So Rivlin and her idea of social action and the policy process analysis is it really starts from the very beginning. You can't just roll something out without taking these drastic measures and doing research and really getting as much information as you can before you just implement something into society. So for the issue of homelessness, government leaders must work together. They've got to foster and build relationships. They've got to be able to take orders from one another. That way they can achieve and come up with at least reasonable or realistic solutions. So Mary Parker Follett and her power with, not power over philosophy really needs to be incorporated into the policy making process in order for good solutions to come about. And just a little bit about Taylor. He's really more into there's only going to be one way to do something. There's only going to be one way to achieve the greatest amount of efficiency and satisfaction, which in this regard really wouldn't work. We need to be more collaborative, and we need to involve more people. Our Constitution addressed the general welfare of the public, and whether or not the federal government has the authority to dictate how these programs are ran, but the division of labor and the level of accountability and efficiency of these programs really need to be carefully examined, again, at the policy making process. I also thought about Woodrow Wilson and his stance on administration. The administrative side of government is the most obvious. It's the government in action, and it's the most visible, and it's often under the most scrutiny because people are able to see this. It's when something fails, it's out there for everybody to see, and so it's oftentimes policy programs that are implemented are scrutinized for not being able to be efficient or tackle or handle the actual needs of the community. One thing with Taylor and his idea of efficiency is that he really lacked that emotional connection with people, and due to the nature of this problem in itself is people, I feel like he really does would have to be expanded and really implement some of the other ideas of building relationships with one another and dividing up the work and communicating efficiently and effectively. Talked about formal and informal lines of communication. So all of these boundaries that are set in place really would be necessary in order for there to be true solutions and improvement regarding this issue. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation, and I look forward to listening to yours as well. Have a great week.